record as well, just so I can... Oh, I think I need your permission to record it.
Oh, okay. Let me...
Just so I can listen back to it.
Where's the settings? Darn this. We'll figure it out. I'm gonna stop.
Okay. So you spoke about your experience a bit in the TikTok, but are you okay to just go through that again and maybe in more detail about what happened to you?
Yeah, so my TikTok is heavily devoted to outing narcissistic abuse, taking down the patriarchy, women taking back their power, and PTSD of sexual trauma in general. I've had a pretty tumultuous past with relationships, and I've worked through some codependency issues so that I could figure out why I kept getting into that situation. But basically, before I had done that work, I was in between marriages, and I had found an individual who seemed to check off all the boxes of Dream Man. And it was a really whirlwind romance, and he said everything I wanted to hear, typical narcissist. And the relationship, I would say, became very sexual, very fast. There was an intense attraction there. We had dated for maybe a couple of weeks, and he very quickly off the bat showed some commitment issues and broke things off with me. And when I outed him doing this to women, because I found out he had done it to several women.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he had also burglarized my home. So there's that. So when I reported that, he then, in an effort to take revenge on me, trying to get justice for myself by posting nude photos that he had taken in what I thought was private area. And I knew he had the photos, but he posted them all over websites, specifically revenge porn websites. There are whole websites devoted to just that men subscribe to. And a friend of mine found them. And that to this day is a little questionable, because I'm like, why were you on there?
Yeah.
it was a male friend, but he found them and did at least bring it to my attention. And so that's how the photographs came to be.
So how did you feel the moment when you saw that they were out there?
Shocked. I didn't even know that such a thing existed. And when I brought the news of this information to my friends at the time, female friends, one of them was a lawyer, and she said, in the state of South Dakota in America, we do have a law that says that revenge porn is a felony here that was implemented only within the last couple of years. And you can take him to court for this. So that is what I did. I filed a motion for a protection order to be issued against him. That's the equivalent of a restraining order here in America. And I took the evidence with me of all of these photographs plastered all over the place on these several websites, again, devoted specifically to revenge porn. I wasn't the only one on there. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of images of women, of people's exes on there, both of women who knew the photographs were taken and didn't. And so I went to the court with this information, and was very discouraged by the response that I got.
So do you think it has anything to do with like misogyny, this whole kind of, because obviously, I mean, they're not taking it seriously, and nothing is being done about this?
I do. I think that in America specifically, and maybe you deal with this in the UK as well, and I'm told that in Australia this is prevalent as well, that it's a patriarchal system societally, and old white men are in charge. And typically the boomer generation, who doesn't understand the internet, and boomer women who have a lot of internalized misogyny, the boomer women always want to say, well, you gave the pictures to him, so they're his to do what he wants with. And the boomer white men want to be like, well, we don't even really understand how any of this works. And they also have the same notion of, well, you lost your right to privacy when you gave those images over. But just last year, additional to the revenge porn law that was implemented, my friend Jessie, whose mother is a politician here in South Dakota, passed a law that says, because apparently we needed more laws for the law that was already passed to make it official. I don't know why the first one wasn't solid enough, but the new one states that you cannot record somebody in places of perceived privacy. So I think that takes care of the whole clause, well, you gave it to somebody, so it's theirs now, and sort of puts a wall around what is or isn't deemed to be considered private. At the same time, they're still finding loopholes. For example, when I took my situation to court, they said, well, you can't really prove that it was him who did it. The only way to prove that it was him is to seize his modem, and we would need a warrant for that. And I don't know if you've had any experience with warrants, but you got to have like extreme proof, like that someone like dead is in the house, to get a warrant. It takes a lot to get a warrant. It can't just be, oh, we think you posted some nude photographs. So they can sit here and have these laws, but at the end of the day, like they don't, like you said, it's not enforced, and they aren't looked at as a bigger deal. Women are still seen as commodities, and they never really ratified the Bill of Rights beyond us voting. And so we constitutionally in America don't really have any rights except to vote.
So where is he now? Did he ever face any consequences, or he just got away scot-free?
So I've had 3 ex-husbands. He was not one of them, but he was a long line of white men that I have dated. And I now date a Hispanic man. Through those lenses, I have been able to surmise that more often than not, the white men do get off with a slap on the wrist. And I too, as a woman, have been in the legal system, and I've been to jail and all that too, for things that we can discuss, if we need to, but I don't know that they're really pertinent to the interview. But the point is, a lot of times, white men are Googled through this lens of boys will be boys, whereas women and minorities are subject to harsher punishments. And that speaks to stereotypical racism. At the time, this individual who I have to a little look at myself because I expressed great misjudgment in dating him. Again, these are codependency issues. He was on house arrest for drinking, and he did burglarize my house, and he did post these images on the internet, and nothing ever happened to him other than he had to go through some classes for DUI because he had a drinking problem. But it seems shocking, but other women who have been through what I've been through also have the same story. If you fit into a certain category, you can kind of do whatever you want, at least in America. I don't know about over there.
Yeah, I do agree with that. There's a very unfortunate pattern.
Yeah, it's very harrowing and discouraging. And I think it's why a lot of women, I know it's why a lot of women don't speak up about rape or sexual assault in general, is because not only will we not be believed, but nothing will happen. And in fact, the situation will be intensified. So there's that.
Has there been any lasting effects from this experience? I know you said you look back and there was a lot of misjudgment. Do you think that you still, did it affect you in any way that is still affecting you now?
The internet is forever. So those images in some capacity do still exist. Really, the only saving grace for revenge porn is the fact that the market is so saturated that your images will be here today and gone tomorrow. Somebody else will become a victim. The long-lasting effects would be the PTSD of it all. I trusted somebody, and this is what they chose to do with it. And now, as a result, what I should be able to have with my current partner, who I do trust in intimate moments, it can't, because that happened to me previously. So what's to say it won't happen again? Additional to the fact that, again, these images are out there if somebody really wanted to search them, even though it was many years ago. For my part, I chose to take these horrible things and turn them into something better. And that's where the TikTok account comes in. And I expose it. But for one of me, there's like 100,000 women who are watching it and weren't brave enough or couldn't be brave enough to do the same thing. And their stories just go untold and unheard. And I'm told that channels like mine provide some type of solace to them. But we never really got justice. And I don't know that we ever will. And that is why the fight continues to crush the patriarchy. It's a big one. So
is there anyone that you could speak to, or that maybe you still speak to now about it, if you still struggle with like trusting your current partner about it?
So I underwent tons of therapy for codependency issues, narcissism, not me being a narcissist, but narcissistic abuse. And I would highly recommend that to everybody. Not everybody is comfortable with undergoing therapy. And if you do go to therapy or any sort of psychologist, you definitely want to make sure it's somebody that you can trust. I would recommend it being a woman. I just don't feel like men understand. I was willing to work through those issues, but everybody has to decide for themselves when that time is and what method looks appropriate for them. I've known women who simply just work through it by going out into nature and doing some meditating. What that healing process looks like is different for everyone. But the one constant that I find that we all find solace in is women speaking to other women. It's like this I'm not alone sort of thing. It's a Gloria Steinem talks about it. The talking circles of women throughout the ages of history will always make a difference. And so I rely on that.
Yeah. What kind of reaction did you get from the TikToks? Were you shocked that people were finding like solace in it?
Yeah, I got on TikTok in the pandemic because I was bored, and it very quickly, through me merely sharing my own experience, turned into this thing. And I'm still not like a huge deal. I think I'm like 170,000 or whatever, and you'll see people on there with like Drew Offalo. She has like millions of followers, and she does the same content that I do. But it was shocking and disheartening to see how many women have gone through the same experience with zero results.
Yeah.
Same results, and which was zero results for justice. But it did make me angry. It still makes me angry. You can't not be angry about something like that.
No.
Because what gave the individual the rights. And another thing to say that is important to note is every single person in the justice system was a man. So that's another thing. It's like, what gives this man the right to do this? And then these other men have no responsibility to come in and do something.
Yeah.
I always tell my partner, because he always talks about racism because he is Hispanic, but I always tell him, there's the war on race and then there's the war on gender. And those are always be two separate things. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a Black woman going through the system, because they have even less successful results, assuming that they're heard at all, or a Native woman. So a lot of work to be done yet. And I think that as women, we do have to sort of lean in and say what is or isn't acceptable to us anymore. But that'll come with societal changes. I think it'll happen when the boomers die.
Let's hope. Is there anything more that you are doing or you wish you could do to stop this from happening further?
So the internet is very unprecedented times, and it can be used as a great force of good and a great force of evil. So when we see revenge porn, that's a source of evil. But then when we see, I don't know, there's no abortion clinic where I live in South Dakota. So telehealth has served as a way to get women the pill. And I know that we're not talking pro-choice, pro-life on here or anything like that. I'm just saying the internet can be used for good and it can be used for evil. So when it comes to anything more, because that's what you're asking, is there anything more I wish could be done? I do wish that the powers that be would enforce these laws rather than just write them down.
Yeah.
And I do hope that through sharing our experiences with the Time's Up movement, the Me Too movement, and doing things like what you and I are doing right here, right now, or filming a TikTok, I feel like that is the way, because when you know better, you do better. And the more people who know and the more stories that are told, the less this will be accepted because a light will be shined on it. So
Yeah.
I can't say I wish I would do anything different, but that is what I wish would change for society as a whole, is that more people spoke up and there was a zero tolerance policy. And I have a young daughter, and when I look at her, I see it headed that way. But for now, again, we're still inching towards it.
If there was what would you say to someone who is maybe going through this right now and doesn't know what to do and feels like you felt really hopeless and disheartened because no one's listening to them or they can't do anything, what would you say to them?
So in my case, I chose to take it to court, and I knew going into the courtroom that the results would probably be not in my favor, based on history. So everybody has to decide themselves if they want to take it or court or not. For me, it's something I chose to do knowing it was going to fail. And I would tell other women, if you do take this to court, you're right, you probably won't get results, but at least you'll be able to say that you tried. The best advice I can give to other women is to know they're not alone. And just like
Mhm.
it is in addiction recovery, you have to find a group where you have common grievances, and that will help you cope. And I think another powerful sentiment is you're not what happened to you, and karma is a real thing. Like, that's a
Mhm.
real thing. I've seen it with my eyes. Like, I talked to a detective once who had tried to help me navigate the situation, who was involved, but he didn't really have power to do anything. And he said, the only thing that makes my heart hurt for women that this happens to, it's like one of the few nice white guys I ever met, okay? They're very few and far between. He said, the only problem is karma is a real thing, and hell definitely does exist, in his opinion, is what he was telling me. The only sad thing is, usually when these people get what's really coming to them, the victim's not around to see it. But I have had experiences where I've seen individuals do horrible things to other people, and later on down the road, that did not work well for them, because they aren't going to change who they are. But you're not what happened to you. So you
Yeah.
can go on and live a life of love and fulfillment. And if somebody has to do that to another person, what they did to you, they're never going to have that. So you really do, it sounds very cliche, but once you do the work, you really do just have to rise up
Mhm.
and not accept that in your heart, because it's not yours to carry.
No. Have you spoke to him? Have you had any contact with him? Does he know that you're speaking out about this?
No, I mean, I don't know if anybody's interested. His name started with a K, but no, his name was Coulter. Uh, the reason that I feel comfortable revealing his name is because
You
he,
should.
yeah, absolutely. But it's a protection thing, and there are laws that unfortunately do still protect him in a nutshell, but I can release his first name. But I haven't had contact with him personally since, but I have seen him around, and I've spoken with his girlfriends that he dated after me, and they
Right.
all had the same experiences with him.
Really?
Individuals don't change. They don't change. And it's sad because he is searching for something he's never going to find in anything or any woman. Like, by the time you're doing that evil shit to someone else, you have something inside of you that isn't going to be cured. So, yeah, he can do that to me. He can do that to other women, but we see him, and that's got to be a miserable existence. I feel
Yeah.
sad for him. Um,
What do you
yeah.
think their motives is, people that do this? I mean, I had no idea there was whole websites like dedicated to this. Why do you think people do it?
Ego. They feel personally defeated. That's kind of a narcissism thing too. Like, he didn't like that I was calling him out on his shitty behavior, so he did
Mm.
the worst possible thing that he could think of to me so he could win. And he was trying to deface my what people thought of me, so that they would think less of me, thinking that that made him look better somehow. It's a whole weird psychology with narcissism, but essentially that was how he was winning the game. It's all very juvenile and sad, but I don't know if there was any goal to it other than to make himself feel personally validated in that moment, so that he wasn't feeling like he was so shitty. It's like, oh, I'm shitty. Well, look at this. It's just to
Yeah.
take the attention off of themselves. And there are whole sites dedicated to it because men are egotistical and they want to swing their dicks around. And I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. Like, men look at women as commodities. There are studies that show that when people look at two images, one of a man and one of a woman, the woman is looked at as individual parts. Oh, she's got a fatter stomach. Oh, she has a rounder face. Whereas the men are looked at, oh, he looks like he has a haircut like he's in the military, or he looks smart like he might be a doctor. So
Yeah.
we have to stop looking at individuals by gender and race and just look at them as whole people.
Well, how do you think we could be making women feel more safer online? Because I mean, like you said, like we could argue that the internet is such a positive thing, but also it's creating, like, so many women are so vulnerable, like you were. What can we do to make women feel better? Because I mean, it's so easy to say, oh, don't post those, don't take pictures like that, but then that's victim blaming, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it
What
causes us to censor our lives. Look, I'm spicy, and you're talking to the wrong person about that, because if it was me, I'd say let's start our own revenge porn sites, but that's illegal, and then we're no better. I think, well, the powers that be, being the government, do have to start enforcing stricter rules and policies, and that's a very hard thing. But I think it's also that we have to continue to speak up about, this isn't right. We're not going to accept it. There honestly needs to be new sanctions around the internet. Like, we are in a really uncharted territory. Like, taxes this year were hard for them to issue all back. I don't know how it's done in the UK, but here, we have taxes and income tax returns every year. So they had problems distributing taxes to everybody because a lot of people have their own gigs. That's gig economy. A lot of people own their own businesses. There's Venmo, there's Cash App, all these different ways to give and receive payments. So they need to get some sort of regulation better on the internet, probably open a whole department just devoted to, and I know there are some departments out there that exist that are devoted to taking down child pornography and stuff like that. But they need to broaden that department so that the internet is more policed, not just this sort of free for all. I mean, the internet's the wild, wild west right now. Perhaps it will be different in 20 years.
Yeah. And just lastly, is there any, do you know of any charities or organisations that you would recommend to victims?
Oh,
that
man.
Maybe...
No, and I can't say that I know of any charities that are revenge porn driven. I mean, the best thing that people can do is Google coalitions for, look, it's sexual assault at the end of the day. Like, it goes into that same category. Like, you are exploiting someone. That is sexual exploitation, which is the same as sexual assault. So if that happens to you, I guess RAIN, I forget what it stands for. RAIN. Have you ever heard of this, RAIN? It's the sexual assault victim. Maybe they don't have that over there.
I don't think I have.
It's the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. And basically, it's just a hotline that you can call, and they will talk you through. I've called them before when I've had issues. They will talk you through how you're feeling, and it's women who have gone through the same thing. So if you're having a moment of crisis, I would recommend calling them and letting them get you through that moment. They will know the resources for the next steps you can take in something like that.
Yeah.
But again, it's just so hard because, like I said, it's such an unprecedented time for the internet, and the situation is taken so lightly. I think on the TikTok video, which I will be linking into this for the podcast, it says at the end, it's been a while since I made that video, so you'll have to excuse me. I felt embarrassed to ask you. I'm like, okay, I think that was like 6 months ago. I remember the situation happening. I don't remember, when I posted the TikTok. But I'll put that in the link as well, and I'll send it to you when I email you this. But I mean, just to conclude, women out there who are listening can know you're not alone. This does happen. It is unfortunate. It's not your fault. And these assholes will be met with their own bullshit one day. There's solace in knowing that karma is a real thing.
Definitely. Is there anything else you want to add about your experience, or?
No, you've been great. I appreciate you interviewing me today and for allowing me to release this on my podcast. And I hope that your project goes swimmingly. It was very nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me.
No problem. You have a great day.
You too. See you
Bye.
later.